Yeah, this is Carrie Vaughn at the 2011 Comic-Con. Carrie, can you talk a little bit about, from the Damsels in Distress panel, you were talking about some of your pet peeves in urban fantasy. What are your pet peeves in urban fantasy?
I have a whole list, and I've blogged about it, and I know we talked specifically about some of the, they're physically strong heroines who end up being emotionally dependent and emotionally kind of angst-ridden, and may I even say whiny in some cases. Not to, I hate to be negative, but I do have pet peeves. And I think to keep it short, what I keep coming back to is there are so many models of strong women in the real world, and my heroes are people like Jane Goodall and Amelia Earhart and Madeleine Albright and Sally Ride and these amazing, amazing women who have just gone out and, they're not people we think of as physically strong, but the strength of their convictions and the strength of their beliefs and the strength of their will, and that's what I look for in a strong woman character, in a kick-ass woman character. And, along the same lines, I've actually read blog comments or forum comments from people who say that they can't respect a heroine who's stronger than her significant other. And that kind of ticks me off a little bit. I'm like, I would like to see my heroines in partnerships, have them be in relationships where their significant other isn't intimidated by them, and that's important to me, and that's the kind of relationship I like to see. I like to look to the real world rather than these kind of idealized models that may, have seamy undersides that we don't. I mentioned in the panel yesterday the comment I once got from a reader about Kitty turning into an opportunistic slut, and all I could figure was that Kitty initiated sex. And that made her a slut, and I don't understand that, and I would like to see sort of more. I would like to see, male and female characters on more of an equal footing, in all respects, not just the physical.
Absolutely. And as someone who also writes YA, would you say I've become concerned somewhat in romantic relationships that seems so prevalent in YA?
Yes.
So the girl who is helpless in the face of her love, and no matter how terribly he treats her, she's still hopelessly in love with him. And did you think about that at all as you were writing your YAs?
It was huge in my mind. My favorite books are ones where she picks up the sword and goes off and saves the world. And maybe she has a boyfriend and maybe she doesn't. And you'll notice in both of my young adult books, the heroine has to come to a decision. Is she going to save the world? Is she going to do what she knows needs to be done? Or be with the guy? And you find out, maybe the guys aren't the most important thing in the world, and that's really important to me, is to have books where girls are having adventures on their own terms, and the adventures in themselves are important, and not necessarily getting the boyfriend. Especially when you're 16, there are really many important things in the world when you're 16.
Your first love is necessarily not going to be the end of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of YA, will there be a sequel to Voices of Dragons or Steel?
I hope so. Probably not Steel. That had a pretty definite ending in my own mind. But Voices of Dragons, I definitely would like to write the sequel. Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline for that yet, so I can't be any more concrete than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, speaking of strong women, someone mentioned in the panel that they really appreciated the evolution Kitty went through in her first book, in terms of starting out as the lowest member of her pack and coming into her own. Were you at all concerned at first that you were basically writing about a woman in an abusive relationship who kind of was trapped by her pack, her need for a pack, and was trapped in that situation?
On the contrary, I thought it was a story that needed to be told. I did not even think about it until people started asking me about it. It didn't even occur to me that starting out with a woman in an abusive relationship would be at all controversial, because I wanted to show her breaking out. I wanted to show her learning to stand up for herself, and I can't. It bothers me a little bit that people think that's an unusual story, because it's. I'll share. I got email recently, a few months ago, from a woman who wrote me. She said, "I read the first Kitty book, and I thought to myself, it couldn't be that easy to just walk away from an abusive situation without looking back." And then she said, "It turns out it is." So this was somebody who was in that situation herself, and she read the book and was able. I feel like everything I've done in my life is justified for that one email that I got, and it does kind of blow my mind that people don't see that as a good story, or not everybody, but I do get comments sometime about that. But that it was the natural story. It was absolutely a natural story.
The It goes to show how one-dimensional the idea of strength has become.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not beating people up, you're not a strong person.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of the book, is that Kitty's radio show is the thing that gave her the strength to stand up for herself. You know, as soon as she had something to fight for, she learned how to fight. And women, I don't know too many women who were born knowing how to fight. You know, just about every strong woman I know went through a process of learning how to do it and learning how to kind of break out of the societal expectations. And that's huge. It's a huge thing that we all have to deal with, I think.
And Kitty's fights keep getting bigger and bigger. In the
Yep.
latest book, we're kind of setting up a big showdown with Roman coming up. Is that something we can look forward to in the next couple of books?
Eventually, yeah.
Is a big war brewing on the horizon?
Book 10 is Kitty Steals the Show. That will be out next year, 2012. And she goes to London for the first international conference on paranatural studies. So at that point, she's going to be meeting vampires and werewolves from all over the world. And we get to see how big the issue really is, I think.
Now, in your latest book, you kind of took Kitty on a romp with Chinese mythology. What inspired that? Were you watching a kung fu movie one day and you thought, yes, the Monkey King, I should do that?
I will confess that I am a big fan of the Monkey King, and I thought, you know, that's the great thing about writing the Kitty books, is I really can include just about anything. There's no rules, no holds barred, and I've been wanting to write about non-Western mythology, you know, a particular non-Western mythology, and this is kind of how the ideas for the books come together. Is I wanted to write about the Monkey King, I wanted to write about a non-Western mythology, so I did some research on the Chinese mythology, figured out how to make it work.
And is that the last we'll be seeing of Anastasia? She's done?
I haven't decided yet. You know, this is the thing, is I've got this great cast of secondary characters, and if she needs to come back, she'll come back. I haven't decided how that's going to happen yet, but you know, never say never.
Never say die. Now, are there any other mythologies you kind of have in the back of your mind that you want to play with in the future?
Oh, so many, all kinds. I haven't done a whole lot with demonology, like the Christian, you know, it's still a Western mythology, but the whole demonology side of things I haven't really done a whole lot with. You know, I've had jinn, I've had you know, all kinds of shapeshifters, and this is the interesting thing, is, you know, every culture has a shapeshifter myth, or a set of shapeshifter myths, and, you know, how do you work those into the mythology I've already established, and that's something I'd like to do more with as well.
You've also mentioned that you're planning a Cormac spin-off series.
It's a definite possibility.
That would be, will he keep his dual mind? Will his passenger will be along for the ride?
When I do it, I'm looking at it as a buddy detective story with one of the buddies being disembodied. We'll see how that works.
So any tidbits you can give us about what's coming up for Kitty next? Any hints you can drop in terms of, there's a big conference, will she and Ben still be happily together? Will there be any kind of problems with the cat? Anything?
There's such a fine line between hint and spoiler. I don't know how far to go. I am working on book 11 right now, and that one is domestic. It's set in Denver. It's her dealing with the pack and the family. So it's another comment I get a lot, is people wishing that they could see more of the werewolves and more of the pack, and that will come in book 11. We'll get that. I don't have a title for it yet.
Do you have a sense of where it's all going to end? Do you know what the final scene is going to be?
I do. I know what the last book looks like, but I keep getting ideas in the meantime. So.
You're ready, Kitty, for a long time. Do you have any other projects on the horizon? Any more YA coming our way?
I'm working on a YA idea. I'm working on short stories. I've always got something going on in the back of my mind. I've been on about a 2-book-a-year schedule. You know, they haven't all come out 2 books a year, but that seems to be my natural writing schedule, so I'm hoping I can keep that up for a good long time.
And my last question, because we are at Comic-Con, have you had a big geek moment? Is there anything you've seen or done?
Oh gosh, I did get to see a glimpse of Chris Evans signing at the Avengers booth. I got into the J. Michael Straczynski panel. I'm a big J. Michael Straczynski fan.
I go to his every year if I can. I love it.
And I didn't think I would get in, and I did, and it was fabulous. I just love listening to him. Yeah, I always have a great time. You know, I just love walking around and seeing what surprises are out there.
All right, well, thank you so much, Carrie, for taking the time.
So thank you.